Alright, this video is showing our example of using an augmented matrix to solve a system of 3 equations and 3 unknowns. Now remember, the only difference between this and the previous video is that the goal is a little bit different because there are more numbers in the problem. We still want the identity matrix, and our augmented area will give us our x, our y, and our z value. So the major difference is how we work the problem. We still start with a 1 in the first column and work our way down. Then we get a 1 in the second column and work the rest of that to zeros. Then we get the 1 in the third column and work our way up. You need to get each column completed before moving to the next column. So we start with the augmented matrix, and I'm going to write relatively small here. 2, 3, 1. 3, negative 2, 4, negative 1, 4, negative 2, which are the coefficients off of x, y, and z. And the answers start off 11, 10, and 8. Now we need a 1 in that upper left-hand corner. So we look at the first column and we look to see if there's a 1. There is. So our first step should simply be swap rows 1 and 3. Which would result in the first row becoming 1, 4, negative 2, 8. The second staying 3, negative 2, 4, 10. And the third becoming 2, 3, negative 1, 11. There's no reason to try to get a 1 anywhere else yet until the entire first column is set and matching the identity matrix. So now we're going to carry out the combo moves. Now I'm going to do both combo moves at one time. Okay? I'm going to do 2 at once. And the reason I'm going to do 2 at once is to save space. If you're more comfortable showing it 1 at a time, go for it. Essentially, we're going to do row 1 times negative 3, and we're going to add that to row 2. So that would be negative 3, negative 12, positive 6, and negative 24. And then we would add those numbers to the second row. Now while we're at it, I'm going to carry out a second set of the same thing, row 1 times negative 2, and I'm going to add that to row 3, which would be my next step. So row 1 times negative 2 would be negative 2, negative 8, positive 4, and negative 16. And then I would be adding those numbers, which I'll use pink highlighter here, to add to the third row. So I'm doing basically 2 steps at once. I hope that doesn't bother you too much. Which will give me, the first row will stay 1, 4, negative 2, 8. The second row would become 0, negative 14, 10, and negative 14. And the bottom row would become 0, negative 5, 3, negative 5. Notice the entire first column matches our goal now. That is what we need to do. Okay? Now I'm going to wrap around to the next step here, the next row, and I'm going to multiply row 2 by negative 1 over 14 to get a 1 right here. That's the goal, is to get the 1 in that row, then the zeros. So that would give me, first of all, the first row is unaffected by this, so 1, 4, negative 2, 8. The second row, I'm dividing each number by 14, multiplying by negative 1/14, which would be 0, 1, which is the whole point, is to get a 1 there. Negative 10 over 14, which reduces to negative 5 over 7. And 1. And then the last row is currently unaffected. 0, negative 5, 3, negative 5. I'm forgetting to put my dotted lines in here, but it's not like that really matters. Okay, now we're going to carry out another one of those double moves. We're going to do row 2 times -4 and add to row 1. I'll write those up above row 1. So row 2 times -4 would be 0, -4, and 20 over 7, and then -4. And I'm going to add those numbers, whenever my computer catches up, to row 1. So I'm going to add those together. And at the same time, I'm going to do row 2 times +5 and add to row 3, which would be 0, 5, -25 over 7, and 5. And then I'm going to add those numbers to the third row. So my new result will be 1, 0, and this is the tough one. 20/7 minus 2 is 20/7 minus 14/7, or 6/7. -4 plus 8 is 4. Second row is still 0, 1, -5/7, 1. And the third row is now 0, 0. 21/7 minus 25/7 is -4/7, 0. So notice the first two columns now match my goal. So now I need to get the 1 for the third column, which would be where the -4/7 is. So I'm going to multiply, and this will actually go to the next page. I'm going to multiply row 3 by the reciprocal of -4/7, which is -7/4. I'm going to write that result on the next page. So take a second, make sure you're with me here, and I'm going to get that copied over to the next page. Okay, there we go. Now when I do that, when I multiply by -7/4, that's going to give me that, which means I only have one more combo move to do and I will be done. So I'm going to multiply a copy of row 3 by +5/7 and add to row 2. That would be 0, 0, 5/7, 0. And then I would add those numbers to the second row. And at the same time, I'm going to multiply a copy of row 3 by -6/7 and add that to row 1, which would be 0, 0, -6/7, 0. And by the way, this one is working out really nicely. They usually don't work out this nicely. I'm going to add that up there to row 1, which will give me my final augmented step. And I want to clean this up just a little bit here, just because it's a little sloppy. There we go. My new first row will be 1, 0, 0, 4. My new second row will be 0, 1, 0, 1. And my third row will remain 0, 0, 1, 0. So notice I now have the identity matrix to the left of the line, which tells me that x is 4, y is 1, and z is 0. And my answer, which has to be written as an ordered triple, would be 4, 1, 0. That does it for this video over augmented matrices.